Veiqia is the tattooing, the custom of tattooing that was known in Fiji, that was practiced in Fiji up until the arrival of Christianity. So in the cave in Kia Island, there's a mound called Ha'amoa. And on the island of Kia, out to sea, the deep sea, there's a coral system, reef, sunken reef, called Utule. In terms of the connection from Samoa regarding the tattoo, the Veiqia, the story on the island is the tattoo in Samoa, possibly Tonga, originated from this island, Kia. But stories, over time, they become legends. When you deconstruct a legend, it is devoid of facts as we understand it in the Western sense, because it's not really about the facts. The legends are there to say these people are related. That's the legend is there to be passed on. Don't look at it and wear the Kaiwarangi lens to understand and look for facts, but just to understand these are old ancient relationships, period. That's it. When you look at archaeology and linguistics, the connection between Fiji and Samoa is closer. But in the legends and the names, they also say first to Samoa, then later to Tonga. And when you understand Samoa, south is Tonga, Alu Konga. Linguistically too, the language between Wasawawi, Telefa, Samoa is very close. Ngosu, Ngutu, Udu, the nose, Dalinga, Talinga, Mata, Mata, Dato, Tato. There's a lot of similarities. So tattoo was just one aspect of the connection. There's more linguistics, there's the culture, the sharing, the trade. The red feathers. The capital of red feathers in the Pacific is Fiji. The feathers is called kula. The word for red in ancient Fijian language is kula kula, red. Now we look at mats, we adorn them and decorate them, and women decorate them with wool, but the ancient name still remains. We kula the mats. But the place that still retains the kula is the Samia Tonga, which has red kula feathers. Those are from Fiji. There's a lot. So it's not only, it's the migration, it's the inga, it's the relationship. But we have become, I might say, from the Wasa Wasa consciousness, we have now become the Western concept, geography, golf ball consciousness, which is why it is no surprise that there's a bit of territorialism. This is us and them. But in the pre-history of things, there was no us and them, there's us. So the Veiqia was practiced by women and maidens as a transition from childhood into womanhood. For males, it would be the circumcision and into being a warrior. The ones on the tattooed on their thighs from a distance, because there were no photos then at the time of the tattooing, there were sketches. And for those who sketches, the traders and the settlers and the whalers, from a distance, when the young Fijian maidens were seen, it was as if they were wearing black tights. But the tattoos were not only confined to their thighs, it also went to their hands and around their lips and their cheeks. It was here, around their cheeks, where their tribal totems were tattooed. So when you're talking about art, drawing from nature, the ancestors, they saw what was in nature, what was abundant, that formed the abstract art that became the tattoo. So for someone who would not know then, What's that? This is the, and they'll name either a shell, a tree, a rock, and it had the name. For those who knew, they could, oh, here comes the people from the, and they'll name that clan because they see the abstract art and they can read it, and it identified them. The markings were to acknowledge that the tribal distinctions and the celebrating of life. All this had to be pushed aside with the arrival of a brand of Christianity that said, heathen, tambu, that's focus, or that's evil, yuck, etc. And it sort of stuck, stigmatized. But the memory still lives on in the story. So when the missionaries arrived, anything, any adornment of heathenism had to be done away with. So we had to literally and figuratively put on the cloak of Christianity. Out went the Veiqia and also the tattooers. Out went the hairstyle, the big Fijian hairstyle. In came this kind of hairstyle. So also there's this goddess Divivded. She was the staff, also you may say, for them then. Divivded was a goddess from the spirit world. So to be eligible to go to the spiritual also after you die, you have to have the same markings as your mentor to gain access into the world of the maidens, spiritual of the maidens, of the women. And that world is known as Burotukula, where comes the mana of Pulutu in the Pacific. That's the world of the females, the spirit world. That's their Eden, their paradise. You have to have a Veiqia in order to go to that world. She was the initiator, so to speak, of the. It's like what you'd have where young people today would have their stars in rugby, in music, etc. Well, in those days, Divivded was the star of the young maidens, and in order to gain access and favor, something like the Greeks, when they put the coins and they have to be able to go into the boatman of the dead to go to the other side. For the women, it's Veiqia. All that is gone. At the Itauke Institute of Language and Culture, we've collected these stories, and these stories were recorded in the dialects of the matriarchs and the grandfathers from all the villages, 1,171 villages to be accurate. So the stories there are stories of old women still recalling their grandmothers. These are women who were recorded in the 80s and the 90s, recalling as young girls seeing their grandmothers as the last of the Mohicans who had the tattoos. Here we are in the 21st century with our understanding of the world like a golf ball, whereas our matua, their consciousness was the wasawasa, the ocean, and how we try, and when we try to understand the wasawasa from the golf ball perspective, that's where the misunderstanding comes. We have to see it how, our matua, and they did not see Samoa, taonga, they just saw kinship, water, ocean. Yeah. So how we are today is very different from how our matua saw themselves.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.